Do I give a hearty hiya hiya?
Hiya, hiya.
Just as we start recording, a plane goes overhead.
Of course.
Can they hear that? I don't know if they can hear that because it's way in the background. But you know, we're outdoors and we are in Florida, but we look like we're dressed for Buffalo. What is this? Or Detroit.
It's a chilly 65 degrees down here.
Did you do the lighting on this show?
I think so.
Yeah. It sucks. Wait, this is not my best light.
Let me see.
Yeah, move it a little bit. Let's see if we can.
There we go.
No, that's worse. Now they can actually see my wrinkles. That's age, you know.
It's a DIY.
Yeah. All right, now, you centered this thing, the picture, just right.
It's a two-shot. Good
and
two-shot.
We're making our own little video at home.
You got a little something, pancake on your, there you go.
It's pancake
We just got done having breakfast.
It's Max Factor.
In the shade, out in the cold breeze.
Remember Max Factor? I don't think you ever remember that name. You don't
yeah,
know that name? You know
I know the name, yeah.
It's the #1 Hollywood makeup person.
Oh, okay.
During all the great motion picture years when motion pictures were, when they created celebrities, I mean stars, not celebrities. Yeah. And Max Factor had a building on Hollywood Boulevard. It was the Max Factor building, which was at one time the building for Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks and Charlie Chaplin. You know what that was called? It was called United Artists.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
See? And they were the first ones. You know, Mary Pickford, I'll tell you what I did. You know me and my stories, right?
Yeah, no.
Soupy Sales needed to have a boost in his life. It was towards the end there. And so we brought him to Hollywood. He got a star on the sidewalk. And I flew to Hollywood with him for that. Johnny Grant was the unofficial mayor of Hollywood. Now, you know, to put a star on the sidewalk, you have to pay for it. The Chamber of Commerce sponsors it. They started out, they used to do it to honor stars.
Right, that's what I thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, the city did that. So you would come and see all the, you see Lassie. And,
right, like you had to earn it.
Yeah, maybe not Lassie himself. You would, on the star was a couple of turds. But you know, there was a star for everyone in those days. But then they realized, wait a minute, people want to have this happen. They'll pay for this.
So you can.
So they started charging people, and now it's like about. I think it was. It used to be 35. When I checked it out, it was 35 grand. It was like buying a plot in the cemetery. You know, if I could be buried under my star, maybe I'd think about it.
So it's a moneymaker.
Yeah, well, that's what isn't.
I mean, I thought, you know, that was an honor after you had a career and you did some great work. They gave you this star on the sidewalk.
Wait a minute, something wrong with your head? Wait, stop. What planet are you on?
That's promotion. It's promotion.
So yeah, commotion.
Commotion.
All right, so here's the deal now with where I was going. Johnny Grant was he was a radio guy on KMPC station I was on. And not while he was there. I mean, a little older. So now I'm a little older.
Thank God.
So Johnny Grant was the unofficial mayor of Hollywood. And Hollywood didn't have the record people yet. This is before the 70s. The record people came in the 70s, except for the homegrown, like the Beach Boys, and the Mamas and Papas. They were really from L.A. And the Capitol Tower, Frank Sinatra and Keely Smith. That was homegrown. But I think, did somebody just come in?
It's Mary, my dog.
Oh, I thought I heard
She's walking around.
Oh, that's okay. So
we'll introduce you later.
See, I'm so sound sensitive. I can't hear the television, but I can hear the dog whisper, right? So here I am in Hollywood with Soupy Sales and the stars in the sidewalk, and someone had paid for it. We got that. We got the Soupy Sales.
Oh my God!
Yeah. And right near the Roosevelt Hotel, which is famous, legendary, you know, legendary place. On the corner is the Max Factor building, which used to be Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks building, but they turned the Max Factor building into the Hollywood Motion Picture Hall of Fame. And in that building is a set of some of the stars as they appeared in those movies. One of them was Tyrone Power. He was a very big swashbuckling hero, as was Douglas Fairbanks, incidentally, too. But different era. But Tyrone Power was a romantic lead, and he was famous in the 40s during the World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't here for that, so don't get too crazy. But so here in the building, they've got the Tyrone Power set from one of his movies, and then right next to it is Soupy Sales set, because he did one movie, he qualified. He did one film, but because he was a television celebrity and he was a big star.
I watched him.
Yeah, everybody loved him.
Yeah.
And they built a set from his first TV show, which was in Detroit, actually. It started in Detroit, but it moved to New York and became a national success. So we got Soupy there in a wheelchair after he got the star on the sidewalk. And now what you got to know is Tony, this is his son. I'm kind of thinking of the other kid's name. He got two sons. Soupy Sales had two sons. Tony married Tyrone Power's daughter.
Oh.
So the grandchildren have Soupy Sales and Tyrone Power as the grandfathers. Isn't that cool?
That's pretty cool.
And the set is right next to Tyrone Power's in that building, still there. Now, Soupy was famous for throwing pies in the face, right?
Right.
Well, you could never do that. Johnny Grant was too formal for. I mean, he wore cuffs on his underwear. I mean, this is not a guy that really would want to be defamed in any way. But he allowed Soupy to pie him, and he threw a pie in Johnny's face. Never would happen. And some of Soupy's friends he went to school with, Wink Martindale, was from Memphis. Who's the other one he went to school with? There was another one. Who was the host? Peter Marshall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Soupy, I mean, he's legendary. So anyway, it was a great event, and at that event was Shotgun Tom Kelly.
Oh yeah.
Who really helped me put the thing together, along with a couple other friends. Jack Popejoy, I'll mention his name. KFWB, which is KFWB. The WB is Warner Brothers. See, they owned radio stations at the time. Ironically, now let me move this along. Warner Brothers owned the property that they sold to NBC to build the studio in Burbank. Oh. So the NBC studio where Johnny Carson was and all of these wonderful shows like Laugh-In from beautiful downtown Burbank, that was owned by Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers sold it to NBC. Now, last month, NBC sold that property back to Warner Brothers. That's just how the game is played, I mean, everything is shifted around. You pay for a star on the sidewalk. Shotgun Tom has got a star on the sidewalk. We all have our passion, right? And I was thinking that somewhere, someone would honor me in the right place. Like, probably, I know there's a joke here, but...
Well, you deserve to have a star on the sidewalk.
Well, I also deserve a good beating, but let's not go there.
But $35,000, how much is it now?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want a star on the sidewalk.
Especially if it's so much money.
I want mine in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
See, because what started all of this was the Grauman's Chinese Theater was called, which is where the motion pictures previewed and premiered. That was a grand opening of a movie, was at the Grauman's Chinese Theater.
Isn't that where the stars started, in the sidewalk?
Yeah, because they used to put their fingerprints in the concrete, right?
Right.
And also Lassie had his paw in the concrete. Speaking of him again, or her. Lassie was a girl. Should have been Laddie, but they weren't thinking. Well, who's going to look at a dog's genitalia? Only these days.
Mary, where is she?
Right.
She's the smartest Lassie.
So here we go with putting our hands in the cement and our footprints. That's what started all this.
So it's promotion.
Yes. So what I want to do is I want my work to be done in New Jersey, in the least famous place.
We could probably take a piece of sidewalk.
No, I want to be in Newark.
Okay, and chop up a piece and
put a
star
in
it.
Atlantic City, because I want to be where all the Italians are.
We could do it for free. Except
See, the trouble is in New Jersey, if you put your hands in the concrete, you'll feel other hands.
Oh.
That's not good.
Or they'll stay there, and then you'll be
Yeah,
stuck.
that's no good for
No.
Jersey.
Okay.
So anyway, Hollyweird.
Yeah.
Now, the
right.
70s, when I first met you, let's go to this. Now, I told my little story about Soupy. And Soupy was crying in front of the set of his
Right.
Tyrone Power and his own.
So this was Soupy's television show set?
Yeah. Yeah. And he played Moses, one time, came down from the mountain with 15 commandments.
That's right. I know. Dropped one of them.
Not good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Now let me go to you. So in the 70s, the trash moved to Hollywood, the record business. What a bunch of dirtbags. Now all of a sudden, when we did heroin and...
No, you didn't do heroin.
no, I didn't, but I mean the city. When
okay.
the Hollywood, when they were doing opium and heroin, it was quiet. The sexual acting out was, nobody knew what was going on.
Now, what you're talking 70s?
No, this is in the earlier
okay.
days. But in the 70s, the trash moved in and they started doing all these things outwardly. So now Sunset Strip becomes a toilet. But my office was off of there. I said all of these places, all of these studios they don't count anymore. MGM in Culver City, they turned into a parking lot. Warner Brothers, as you know, they sold off their stuff to NBC, as I mentioned. Columbia Pictures they had nothing. Century City was 20th Century Fox's backlot. They sold off the property and built a hotel and put a water fountain out there. They ruined the whole damn thing. The whole damn thing got ruined. The whole city was all of a sudden invaded by record people. Now you got all these rock and rollers coming in there, for which I
Right.
was a disc jockey. So
Yeah, I remember when Motown moved out of Detroit. That was...
and then they moved to No Town, I called it.
Yeah.
And La La Land opened up with craziness. There was, as you know, you came to visit me in 1977. wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I was working on that time on 20th Century Fox, and at that time was Star Wars. That's when we met.
Yeah, I actually was out there to work with the Beach Boys, and I had one extra day left, and I called up my friend Scotty Regan in Detroit, and I said, I'm staying right behind the 20th Century building on Sunset. Do you know anybody over there I should go see? And he said, go see Joey Reynolds. So I had nothing to offer. I had no project or anything, but just Scotty's recommendation, and you were generous enough to see me for absolutely no reason other than to just say hi.
Well, I was doing drugs. I thought you had some stuff for me.
No, had nothing, but I remember your office, and it was just a couple of Star Wars things and a fish hanging from the ceiling with a sticker on it that said, everything needs a hook. And it was a very sparse office, but you were very generous of spirit, and that was the beginning of a 40-something year friendship.
But you know what? Thank you, and you're right. But that office had no one-sheets on the wall, not even Star Wars. You know why? Because every producer, director, or star, or every one of Barry White was next door. The record company was very, very. It wasn't as popular as it should have been. We made it more popular, but we had everybody was a star. Like Edwin Starr sang the song. Who was it? Sly? Sly.
Yes, like Sly.
Everybody's a star. I took all the sheets off the wall because we had about 18 people working under my.
You were the director of marketing.
Yeah. No, I was not. I was called the creative director because the director of marketing was actually the VP.
Oh, okay.
There's always someone above you. And I was not a VP, but I was a pain in the ass. I was a PIA, a PA.
But you did a great job promoting the original Star Wars movie.
I did a great job promoting everything that I got my hands on.
That's right.
Because it was my job.
And you also had your own company called the Joey Reynolds Supermarket.
that was how I first started. And then they asked me to come into the company, into 20th Century Fox. Harvey Cooper was the senior vice president, and he hired me and suggested that he and Russ Reagan, who was the president of the company at the time, Alan Ladd was the film president, Dennis Stanfield was the chairman of the board. I want to give all these names because it was a public corporation. It wasn't owned by Murdoch yet. And the next owner up was Marvin Davis, who was an oil tycoon. And I actually liked him. He was a big fat guy who was jolly and fun. You know, then Murdoch came in, who was a criminal. You know, see, I don't like the Fox whole.
Well,
the whole Fox.
Should we even go there?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, he's not an American citizen.
Right.
He was from Australia, and he bought broadcast property. So that kind of great. That's why I don't like him. Well, because they see when people in this country worship money. Did I do something wrong?
No. I'm just watching Mary walk upstairs.
Oh, well, how would anyone know that? Why would you refer to something that's not on camera?
Yeah, you know, it's real life.
Do you do that in your paintings? Yeah. You put a pigeon in every one of your paintings.
Yeah.
And I sent you a picture of an ingrid. You know what that is, right?
Yes.
It's almost a stark.
They're beautiful. I think they're really beautiful.
And I said,
birds.
This is our version of a pigeon.
Right.
I sent that to you.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
But I digress again. You know, see, you changed the whole conversation.
We'll have to introduce
talking
her.
about Rupert Murdoch, who bought 20th Century Fox eventually. But when he first came to this country, he put his hands on broadcasting. And he bought radio, television. It was in New York. And a newspaper, the Post, from my friend, Abe Hirschfeld.
Oh, yeah. I remember
He
Abe
bought the
from
paper
New York,
from
right?
Abe.
Uh-huh.
Now, Abe was a billionaire who created the vertical parking in New York. You know, people did not used to have buildings where you park your car on top of each other. If it was on top of each other, it was usually, you call Morgan and Morgan,
those,
you know, or Geico. Remember these names? All these names. How did we get into this brand dropping?
You know,
drippings.
Exactly. Drip one at a time.
So back to Murdoch. So Murdoch was an Australian. Now, by the FCC laws, you can only own 5 television and 7 AM. I think it was 5 radio, AM, 5 television. It was, but you could not own radio, television, and a paper,
right?
Because it was a monopoly. Of course, these days the paper don't count like it did. But they let him do that. They let him have that privilege. See, when you have money, you have power, and you have privilege. That's what pisses everybody off. That's why you have Democrats. You know, the Democrats want a piece of the pie, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but everybody wants to make money. I mean, you know, why is it a party?
It's you know, the middle class grew after World War II, and then in the 70s, early 80s, it shifted to trickle-down economics, and it never worked. It's got to be from the bottom up.
All right, now let me make a comment on that. As long as we brought this political stuff up, I think what we did after World War II, and I'm part of the generation that came after that. I think our parents sent us to college so that we would learn what we never learned in school: money. Lawyers. We became lawyers because that was prestige. Doctors. If you have the talent, I mean, you have to be able to do the job. Some didn't have the ability to do the job, but they did it anyway because they got their diplomas, and they have a scroll on the wall, and it says that they're such and such. You know, you have an initial after your name. I just never wanted to be anything, and it worked fine.
Are you kidding? You've done it all. You've been on radio, TV, satellite, the internet. I mean, and now you're on your own Reynolds wraps every day.
And you know, and I have at least 2 or 3 fans.
You've got a lot more than that.
But you know, I don't care about numbers. That's what I want to get at. All my life, the only reason that I'm in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a disc jockey is because I had the highest ratings in history, they say. I had a 60 share of the United States market in the 60s. and it was a few years in a row in Billboard magazine. So I got in there. Now that's because I had numbers, and when you have numbers, people die for that. You know, I mean, it's scoreboard and
Right.
the scoreboard of life.
It's a confirmation. I can't think of the word.
Affirmation.
Affirmation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, we have a lot of clicks now, and you're successful if you have a lot of clicks on your internet.
But like a click doesn't mean that you actually watched it. It only means that you clicked on it and you could have clicked off a second
Right.
later or a minute later and not, participated in the whole
You know how
show.
many people I've clicked off all during my life?
Probably a lot.
Yeah, you know, when you
Or the
have...
door, shoe to the
Oh,
door.
I did nail my shoe to the door when I got fired in Buffalo.
That was classic.
That was a big rating, see?
Yeah.
I had big ratings, and I made a lot of money. That's how they bought that stupid-ass station in Detroit. WJR. JR. Joey Reynolds.
Oh.
No, they paid a lot of money. I made a lot of money for the company. It's Cap City Broadcasting. They bought ABC. They bought the network. Then they sold it to Disney.
Disney,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, all these things are travels. They're travelogues. But they're about prestige, money, power, numbers, all these things that we are guilty of right now, because we're living by those things that you have to be very careful with, and we're not. That's what I'm getting at. You know, we don't have the respect for those things I just mentioned, and that's part of the training that disciplines, the passive aggressive behavior, if you want to be therapeutic about it. You know, I mean, we have a different kind of a world right now because we have respected some of the things for the wrong reason. And what do you do to change them?
Oh, just be kind to others when they least expect it, possibly. And,
Probably start with a good family.
well, that would help create a good family.
Now, you come from a good family, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was very
So what
lucky.
about it? What's your family like?
We were just four of us, my mom, dad, my sister, she's 3 years older, and we just had a very, very modest, upbringing, but it was kind and considerate.
Where was it?
In Detroit. My dad was a navigator in a B-17 in England, he went over there in March of 42 and helped set up the 8th Air Force until the end of the war, and liberated Buchenwald 15 minutes after Germans left it, and liberated Elie Wiesel, 16-year-old Elie Wiesel, on April 11th, 1945. Came back and worked a very modest job, but we had love in the family and peace. And when the 60s came and my sister and I were becoming like hippies, our folks never gave us any crap about it. They were always very encouraging, as long as we didn't hurt anybody else, and we were allowed to do what we wanted to do. So, I chose to be a painter, and they were supportive of it, even though my dad was concerned about the finances of it. It's been through. I've had the success through attraction rather than promotion. I'm not good at promoting, but I think the values that I learned from them were key to what I paint and how I treat people, and which is says a lot about you. When I first met you, like I said, I walked into the 20th building just on Scotty's recommendation to meet somebody new, and I had no business being there. I had nothing to do with 20th, nothing to promote to you, but it was just, and you were open to meeting a total stranger based on Scotty's recommendation, and we've been friends ever since, good friends ever since. So that's, I think, what it's really all about.
I never forgave Scott for that.
Hi, Scotty. Thanks, man.
So your mother now, what did she do? Was she a housewife?
Yeah, she was a housewife, and from the the 1950s.
And she's 90 what?
She's 98 in December, and
Wow.
she was, she got up every morning and made us breakfast every morning before my sister and I
She's not
went
doing
to
that
school.
now, though, is she?
No, and she was just really great. And then she volunteered at Sinai Hospital in Detroit for 25 years.
Wow.
One of those volunteers in the orange uniforms, and she made coffee cake every Monday morning for the docs in the X-ray department where she volunteered, and she became a really good baker. Her desserts were unbelievable.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she could make desserts. Her strength were desserts, like coffee cakes and almond coffee cakes and pineapple meringue stuff, and just she was great. And she was a good cook, but she made a lot of her own clothes, and it was a modest but loving upbringing. So I feel very lucky. Yeah.
I have an almond cheesecake.
Oh, ooh.
Would you like that?
Oh, yes. Joey's cheese. I think Mary would like that piece too.
I think we got an affirmation.
Yeah. Yeah, Joey's cheesecake. Joey Reynolds cheesecake. Someday I hope you guys get to taste it.
I'm not selling them.
Bloomingdale's used to sell them.
We're giving them away now.
Oh no. Well, you know what? Someday again you might. But
Maybe.
I think they have to be made by you, not by a baker. Which was what was happening when Bloomingdale's was selling them. You had to have somebody make them for you. But an original Joey Reynolds cheesecake is. I don't think there's any words for it.
I think I'm going to give you one of the almond cakes today.
Okay.
In honor of your mother.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, because it's an almond cheesecake. I don't think she probably never made cheesecakes.
She did not make cheesecakes, but her
that's-
forte were these almond coffee cakes that were slightly raw, and would just melt. I mean, anybody that tasted them, and I have the recipe in her own handwriting.
Why don't you give me that?
I'll give it to you. Sure,
I'll try that.
Okay, you have to get the yeast to rise. She could tell.
I know how to do that.
By way the yeast was rising, the dough, if it was going to be a good one or not. And we've been trying to replicate it now for a while, and we can't do it.
Well, let me give you the almond cheesecake, and then you tell us what you think.
And I'll send you.
We could stop taping now, and I could go get it.
Okay, I think this is a Reynolds wrap.
Yeah.